You know, there's something beautiful about cars lined up on the grid before the start of a race. Never mind a full field of vintage Formula cars on an era-appropriate track. We're here at Imola. Formula One will be racing here this weekend for the 30th points-paying time. I think I'd be safe in saying this is a favorite of many, the site of many historic battles, the site of tragedy. The original Imola was a dangerous track, no chicanes, tight, twisty circuit, almost like a street circuit through the park. It only remained in that configuration for a short time before Formula One came to host the official points races. You know, I was lucky enough to receive a set of load cell pedals from Husingveld, and I've spent the majority of this week practicing, trying to get back up to speed, learning how to use a new set of pedals. Even ones as excellent as these take some time. So why don't you join me now for a little practice race through the park in the 69 spec Lotus 49. Alright, decent launch off the grid. Get up the gears here, rock it down to the Tamburello, up to 4th gear. Just settling behind this group in front as everybody fans out. Got one car coming up behind me up to 5th gear just for a second here. Take the run into Tosa side by side. All the way down the gears to 1st gear. As everybody tiptoes their way through Tosa, try to get on the gas, not spin out the car. Another Lotus 49 to the left here. Coming to the top of the hill, he's going to squeeze me out. In second, wheel to wheel almost. Very close to making contact. Come over the top of the hill, now down to Acqua Minerale, down to 2nd gear. Another 49 right behind me, so come through the long right-hander. Such a tricky corner in these cars. Cars snap oversteer as I head up the hill. All right, all the way up the gears then. No chicanes here, long flat-out left-hander. Beautiful corner, beautiful circuit really. Come up to Ravazza, down to 4th gear, just poking up the inside. He's not going to take that. But up the inside into Ravazza, 2nd gear. Oh, we're going to slide a little bit wide. Luckily, he gave up. Cold tires, though, come through the final corner. There we go. So I got that position back off the line. Back onto the front straightaway to complete the first lap. Always exciting here in these cars. Been racing these cars a ton this week, and I think they've been a really good car to race, to try to get used to pedals, to new pedals. It's been a big adjustment getting used to new pedals. And so having something where you really have to use all of the pedals, heel and toe, something that's maybe not so easy to drive, that really requires some patience and some care with your inputs, has been very trying, but it's ultimately making me better. It's something that's very tedious to try to learn with because it's very easy to make mistakes. But going from this to something easier to drive will be a lot easier than getting used to something easy to drive and then trying to drive one of these. So it's all right to be a little slower sometimes. Come down to 2nd gear into Acqua Minerale. I didn't get down to 1st that time. A bit wide on the apex, but making it work. By far, it's been the hardest to get used to the brake. Switching from linear braking, I guess, to load cell braking. I've never done load cell braking in a sim before, and it's a lot bigger of a change than I thought it was going to be to get used to, but I can just see now, being my 3rd day with it at this point, when I get it, it's going to be so great because it is so accurate. The whole idea is you'll be able to do the same thing lap after lap, just a little bit better. But it's really tough to get consistent. It's such a different type of braking. It's all about the pressure that you're putting on the braking pedal rather than how far you're actually moving it. Much more like a real car, but still takes a lot of adjustment. It's almost flat out through the Tamburello that time. Close in a bit on this group in front. Got 2 packs forming up here out of 1st gear. We'll get around the outside maybe. Understeer right to the edge of the track. A little late on this shift up to 2nd. So it's been quite difficult to get the brakes good as I mess them up there. I'm definitely locking up the car less, but just getting the right amount of pressure to actually use all the braking force. It's all muscle memory. It's something every time I've adjusted pedals or gone to a new pedal, it takes a bit of time to get used to. This has definitely been pretty tricky, but just in a few days already not too far off where I was, and I think it's just going to get better from here. Through, just hanging on to the back of this group, see if I can put together a good first sector. I feel like I'm a little bit quicker through the Tamburello. Driving this car is quite interesting because it's obviously a car that was designed for no wings, and wings were invented basically on race cars while this car was being run. Extended its life quite a bit, just bolting a couple wings to it. Driving this car quite a lot lately in iRacing, and the difference is quite a lot, but it's mostly because of the wings, obviously. Through a fast corner like the Tamburello there is where you feel them the most. Through a slow corner, all they really do is add some weight to the car. For something like Tosa here in first gear. On the car, though, a lot more stiff because of the wings, the downforce. The suspension has to be tightened up quite a bit. So the car just feels different everywhere. But the MS2 representation of it, I feel like, is pretty nice. We got some smoke in front, car spitting off. Pseudo Ferrari there, going for a little spin. So a freebie position. Always like one of those. These were some of the first cars I tried out when Automobilista 2 first came out. Naturally, the non-downforce variants, and then these ones as well. And it's taken a bit of time for them to come around, but they do feel quite nice now. At first, they definitely had some of the symptoms that all the cars did, just being vague to control, but all of that's gone now. It's much more like I think they would drive. It's maybe got a little too much grip in spots. But overall, much more predictable, much more enjoyable to drive. The car actually does what you tell it to do. Maybe not quite as good as something like the new Indy cars, the kart cars, Formula USA Vintage, as they call it, but it's still miles better than it was, and definitely worth checking out if you're into these types of cars. And I think if you get hard on the brakes there, right up to the back gearbox of the car in front, as they're going to be releasing Vintage Spa and Vintage Nürburgring fairly soon. I think these cars will be getting some use. Right down a second. Nice and lazily through that left-hander. This track certainly keeps you busy. There's a lot going on. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of races, and these cars get very loose on the entry there. Around Monza, around Kyalami, all of the different various vintage circuits, but this has been probably my favorite one, and kind of fitting that Formula One is racing here this weekend. But it's just enough going on to keep you busy. Not too busy. It's not a Monaco that you're tiptoeing through the whole time. A little more interesting than something like a Monza. Really beautiful track in its natural non-chicane form. Oh, hitting the rev limiter. Luckily have one of those in this car. Up the gears. Come to the line. Start a halfway lap. I'm just holding on to this pack in front. Closer this lap than I think I have been. See if I can get a nice run through the Tamburello. I'm going to try to shoot it in, but I'm going to run wide. I have to get off the throttle. Tosa is a tricky right-hander. I feel like you could go a bit faster, but definitely can't go flat through there and then make this corner. At least not yet. In front of this little group here that's holding everybody up just a little bit. I'm barely hanging on to him. Might want first gear through Aqua Minerale, not sure. Get a lot of wheel spin in first gear. It can be tough to control up the hill there. Two in front going side by side. checks up a little bit, come down to Ravazza. See if I can maybe get a run up the inside here. Late on the brakes, out of first gear. Oh, a car in front getting on the curb as well. You don't really want to use the curbs here. Had it side by side for just a second. So I talked about the brake pedal being the biggest change. The clutch is also so different from what I've felt in cars. There's sim pedals in the past, much more like a real car, really. It's got a bite point with it, so as you use the clutch, you feel more resistance in the middle of the pedal. It's easier at both ends, which is definitely taking a bit to get used to. Oh, get crossed up there. First gear up the inside into Tosa. There we go, finally around one of the cars in front. Let me have the position, though, halfway through the corner. Future me here. What you're about to witness is me missing the braking zone by not getting the pedal down hard enough, just like I was talking about, blowing the corner and throwing away that position I just got. You can definitely feel a lot more resistance in the middle of the pedal. It's, simulating a bite point. It's really throw the car sideways there through the top of the hill. Oh, a car behind is going to come back on me down into Acqua Minerale. So making a mistake there finally, getting down the gears, just every once in a while making these mistakes, missing the braking markers, not getting the downshifts correct, the new pedal for the clutch, be a little easier to miss the shifts here and there because I'm just not used to the pressure needed. Up the inside though, through Ravazza, gonna squeeze him out on the right. Let's get that position back right away. Oh, right in the grass just a little bit. Gives you a lot more confirmation of shifting though, and ultimately it's going to be so much nicer. Side by side into the Tamburello. Try to keep it on the inside here, nice and tidy. There we go. There's no way you're going to make a run around the outside through there. Fourth gear, just let that balance the car for a second, and all the way down to first. Down just a little bit in second there. Maybe you want to lengthen first gear ever so slightly for this track. But done a lot of adjustment with the clutch pedal as well, just changing the resistance it takes to actually do that initial push. Just to get it to feel a little bit better, but it's a balance between just trying to make it feel like what you know and actually taking advantage of the new settings and the new pedals. Oh, I'm going to get squeezed out to the outside here. Car comes up the inside. Side by side. Backs out of it, thankfully. See, the AI in Automobilista 2 no longer hounding you quite as much. They do back out now where they never used to, but they also make the moves to try to get up the inside of you. And if they don't get it right away, they back out. It'd be nice if they maybe think more about making the move. It's actually going to work out a little bit, but AI are definitely maturing, which is good. It's not a demolition derby or anything like that. I think we got a nice little race going here. Into the Tamburello, flat out this time. Feels so good when you get it. Pulled out quite a lot on the car behind these. Group in front of me, 3 wide, as we'll head into Tosa again. Fake Matra in front of me now. There are in this set 2 fictional cars and 2 real cars. You get the Brabham and the Lotus, which I'm driving, which are real cars. The other 2, I slowed down quite a lot there, making contact. Car directly in front of it, I think, is the V12 variant. This would be like a Matra or Ferrari. There's one other variant as well. So it's a nice little set of cars, not anything super realistic. Have a nice skin pack on them. It's quite old at this point. just to help make things feel a little bit more realistic. So come down to Ravazza. Feels like Mr. Matra in front wants to give me the inside. Up the gears will come to the start-finish line. Just a few more laps to go. I'd love to get a couple more positions here. Lastly, I haven't talked about the throttle yet, which has definitely been the easiest one to get used to out of the three. But there's quite a lot of change to it. Coming to Tamburello there, close up quite a lot. He's going to squeeze me out to the grass. It's quite daring in an open-wheeled car. Get a nice run up the inside into Tosa. There we go. Slide the car around. He's going to close back in on me from behind. Oh, side by side, we'll head up the hill. Down a second. Try not to miss the apex too much. There we go. Very late on the brakes there. I'm starting to be able to fight back, which is good. Oh, I'm going to slide the car a bunch. Just catching the wheel. Almost lost it in my hands there. Pedal, a lot more resistance on it than any set I've ever used before, and that took a little bit to get used to as well, but much easier to get used to. It feels much more in line with a harder brake. And when you're heel and towing and having to hit the throttle, you're already putting so much pressure on the brake, it would be not as good to have such a soft throttle pedal, and the harder pedal as well as makes it a lot easier to do precise throttle movements since you need a little bit more force overall. It's not such a small adjustment to make changes, so I think that's just going to help out so much accelerating out of corners in these high horsepower, low downforce cars that I like to drive. These two in front shaking it up. That could be an opportunity here with two to go. Gonna fade to the left, see if I can come up the inside, down into Tosa. Oh, side by side here. Right around the outside on the marbles and everything. Both get back around. That was quite interesting. Definitely going to help with that on throttle oversteer. That's very tough to control in a lot of cars. Just make it a bit easier. A much more realistic experience, but quite the adjustment. Still feel like I'm maybe racing at 80-85% of where I used to be, but I don't think it's going to be too long till I'm right back at it. Much more consistent than ever. These two in front of me to keep me occupied here for the final lap or so. Down to Ravazza. Tempting to throw it up the inside there. Kind of want to shoot around up the inside here. Not quite as good of an exit as I wanted. We'll come to the line, start the final lap. Up to fifth gear. A nice run through Tamburello. Hopefully they hold each other up. Trying to go too wide. That's certainly going to happen. Oh yeah, he slides out wide a bit. He's going to get alongside the BRM. Oh, understeers so much there coming down to Tosa. The sinking feeling as the car understeers. Oh, he's going to close up on me. That's one way to keep a position. Down a second gear. Right on the gearbox, come down. Aqua Minerale, it's not going to be a passing zone. So we'll try to get a good exit here. A little bit slower on the entry, try to get that throttle down a bit sooner. Not quite as close as I need to be though. The long left-hander is a little bit slow. So if I can hold out right little bit of throttle mid-corner there just to get up the inside. It's going to squeeze me right against the curb again. Got pseudo fake Chris Amon in front, giving me all kinds of elbows. I'm not going to get him though. Come to the line though. Not such a bad race. At least made it through a race without too many mistakes, but a lot of fun. So still some work to do, but not so far off. I'm just a few nights in with these new pedals and already catching on, making a few mistakes here and there, but ultimately I think I'm going to settle in just fine fairly quickly. Massive thank you to Huisingveld for these pedals and everything that they sent me. They didn't ask me to make any kind of video, but I thought it'd be interesting to make something to show the progression or show the learning curve that comes with getting any new kind of equipment. Whether it is pedals or a new wheel or a new shifter or a new rig and chair, any kind of change to your setup requires you to rework in that muscle memory and relearn some of the things that you previously could do so well. I know in the past I've gotten somewhat buyer's remorse sometimes when I've gotten new gear because it makes you somewhat terrible for a short period of time. But I promise if you work through it, you'll come out better on the other side. And I think that's what I'm headed for here. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you enjoyed Loafer Cam and a throw of the Lotus 49 around classic Imola. Such a nice circuit. But that's it for this one. This is GP Laps. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all again next time.